Hey everyone, welcome back for another video. My name is Tanya for those of you that are new here, and I'm a watercolor and acrylic artist. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint lavender in a teacup. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so to get started, I've got my Arches watercolor paper. I've got my Winsor Newton watercolors. I'll let you know what colors I'm using as I'm going along. I have two paintbrushes here. They're just generic brands, a size 6 and a size 3. I have a pencil, an eraser, and then I'm also going to bring in, maybe, I'm not 100% sure, my archival ink pen at the very end of the painting. I'm not sure yet. All right, so to get started, you can Google any image of a teacup that you want. It could be any shape teacup, and it can have any kind of pattern on it that you want. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to do a very generic teacup, and I'm just going to start out with my oval of where the actual lavender is going to be. And then you're going to want to bring down the sides. Again, your teacup could be straight. It could be really like more like a point, like on an angle. Mine is just a very generic teacup. And then don't forget that little rim on the bottom here where the cup actually sits on the table. And then a handle. Okay, if you want to go ahead and lighten up any of your lines at this point, definitely go ahead and do it. I am just going to leave mine like that so you can see it on camera. All right, so what we're going to do, that's all we're going to be drawing. So the rest is paint. I'm going to pick up my sap green, and I already made a little bit of a wash here. And I'm taking my size 3 paintbrush, and I'm just going to be doing the stems up. Just starting from the cup and just pulling them up, and do as many stems as you want. Some could be longer than others. Some could be more maybe pointing to the side. And again, just do as many as you want. So that's going to be the stems of where the actual lavender plant is going to sit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start filling in down here, and it's going to be mostly greenery. Because there's going to be a lot of leaves. It gets a little bit thicker as you go down towards the stem. It has a lot more of the leaves down there. And their leaves are just like long little lines. So you can just start bringing those in from the stem out, from the cup up. It doesn't really matter. Just start bringing in some straight lines. Some could be longer than others. Just start filling it in, especially down here in the middle of the cup. And I'm just using one green right now, my sap green. We will bring in other colors in a second, but right now this is just the sap green. And I am leaving a little bit of white space in there right now because I want to fill that in with some different colors. I don't have any of the leaves up here more towards the lavender plant up here, because if you look at the plant, most of the leaves are more down towards the bottom. So fill that in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my Winsor yellow, and I made a little bit of a wash already. And I'm just going to start bringing in just a little bit of yellow right on top of my wet paint, just so some of that yellow and that green mix together and make more of a limey green. Not everywhere, but here and there. And if you want to start filling in some of that white space more towards the cup here, you can. All right. I think I want a few more stems, so I'm going to take that sap green again and just make a few more stems coming up. There, that should be good. All right, I am going to go ahead and dry this really quick, and then we're going to start adding some of our purple. So my stems and my leaves are nice and dry, and I'm just going to take my size 3 again and take a little violet. I made a wash already right here on my palette. And the flowers are very textured. It's not like a great big flower with all these beautiful petals. It's not like that. It's more just like little dots. I'm just pouncing my brush a little bit. I'm gonna leave a little bit of white space. I'm going from the stem out. So I'm just pouncing my brush. You can make these as tall as you want. I've seen them really, really long, and I've seen them also where there's not that much of the lavender plant there. So just start picking some of your stems here, and I'm just starting from the stem out, stem out, stem out, and I'm just pouncing my brush, and I'm letting some of that bleed together, and some I'm leaving a little bit of white space. And you don't want them too thick, because then it'll look kind of funny. So just a little bit. And then we're gonna go ahead and put on another layer of this anyways. So when it starts to dry, it'll start looking a little lighter, and then we'll just go in and put another little layer of it, just to give it a little bit more dimension. So right now I'm just using one purple. It's just the violet. But you can use any color you want. And then you can even bring some down a little bit, just so they're not like all in a row up here. You want to maybe mix it up and just bring a few like down, like their stems are a little smaller. It just kind of breaks up that line a little bit. Maybe I'll even do one here. I think that looks pretty good. Maybe I'll make this one a little taller. So just when you're done with them, just kind of sit back and see, you know, if you need a little bit more, maybe towards the middle here, if you want to make some of these longer. I think what I'm going to do is put even a few more down more towards the green, just to break up that green a little bit. I think that's good. Maybe I'll add just a little bit more right here. There. That's about all I'm going to do. All right, so while we're waiting for the lavender to dry, we're going to go back to our greenery here. And I'm going to start using a little bit of my Winsor Green Blue, and I'm just going to make a little wash of it. It's just a little bit of a darker green. Just a little bit, and I'm going to go over some of my stems here and some of my leaves, not all of them, just a few. And I'm going to do it more towards the bottom here, more towards the cup, just to kind of fill it in a little bit and make it a little bit more lush. And again, I'm just doing that leafy pattern, just those long leaves, straight line. And if you want to come in just towards the edge of your cup here and just kind of fill in a little bit, you don't want a complete line, so have it kind of be broken up a little bit, but you can fill that in a little bit here too, just to make it look a little bit darker, more towards the bottom here, more towards the cup. All right, that's about all I'm going to do at this point. All right, so we're going to let that dry as well, and we're going to go on to our cup here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my Payne's Gray, and I'm going to make a little wash. So this is just Payne's Gray. All right, and I'm gonna go over the edge of the cup here because I wanna make that cup look round. My cup is actually gonna be white with polka dots, with big dots. So if you were doing your cup a certain color, you would just go ahead and make it maybe a little bit darker on the sides here to make it look a little bit more like it's round. Because in perspective, what's lighter here will pop out towards you, so it'll bring the sides down a little bit. But I'm going to leave my cup white. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shadow it a little bit. And I'm taking a little bit of my Payne's Gray, and I'm just going to bleed that out a little bit here, just to make my cup look like it's got some shadow on it, not really a color. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. I'm going to add a little water. Blend it out. So you would be doing this if you chose a certain color, you would still be doing the same technique. but with your color. I'm doing it with Payne's Gray because I want my cup to be white. I just want to give it a little shadow. And the same thing with the handle. You're going to want to leave a little bit of a lighter, maybe right here towards the where your finger's going to go to hold the handle. Maybe it'd be a little bit lighter and a little bit darker as you get to the cup here. Shadow that up a little bit more. Shadow up your other side a little bit more if you think you need it. Bring it in. And then lighten up your handle here a little bit. All right. And actually, I got a little too thick down here, so I'm gonna pick that up a little bit. And that's another thing. If you feel that you got a little bit too much in a certain area, while it's still wet, you can use your paper towel and just dab it off. And I'm going to do a little bit for that little rim down here that sits on the table. Okay. All right. Now, if you feel that your cup needs a little bit more of that Payne's Gray, go for it. If not, just leave it alone. I'm going to just darken up this side a little bit more. I just like when things have a little bit more depth and dimension to it. So I like to really play with my lights and my darks. But if that's not your thing, don't do it. And I'm going to leave the middle of the cup white because that is the color of my cup. I'm just trying to shadow it. All right, so now that that's still wet, we're going to let that dry a second, and we're going to pick up our purple again, our violet. And I'm just going to start going over a little bit of my lavender that I had done. I'm not going to go over all of it, but I'm going to bring in some of this darker shade just to give it another layer. So I'll give it a little bit more dimension of lights and darks. And I'm doing kind of the same technique that I had done the first time, just from the stem out. Just little pounces with my brush here. So see how that gives it a little bit more dimension than this? Right now, this looks flatter than that side. So that's all we're doing, is we're giving it a little bit more shadows and highlights. Good. I think that looks really nice. And then when that dries, if you think you want to go in and add a little bit more, you can, but I think that's going to be just enough for me. All right, I'm going to go ahead and dry this because I want to give my green just another little layer, and I don't want it to bleed into my wet cup. So I'm going to go dry this really quick. All right, so everything's nice and dry, and I'm going to go in with my sap green just a little bit more on these leaves here. And maybe just fill in a little bit more where I've got some nice white space in here. Maybe I'll fill in a little bit more of that just to take away some of that white space more towards the bottom here because I want it to look like it's nice and full. And if you want to go over some of your stems again and just maybe just go over some of them, just to darken some of it up, you can. Just carefully go over it. And I think that looks really, really nice. I think that's about all I'm going to do. All right, so I'm going to go on to my cup now, and I'm going to use turquoise. No, actually, you know what? I want to use this cerulean blue. I think I'm going to make a wash of cerulean blue on my palette here. And I'm just going to do polka dots, or actually big dots. But you can do stripes, you could do whatever you want. I'm just going to do dots. And if you feel more comfortable drawing out the dots or whatever pattern you want to do, if you feel like drawing it out first, definitely go for it. I'm just gonna go ahead and just do it without drawing it first. So at this point, you wanna make sure that your cup is nice and dry. And you can do as many or as little as you want. Cute. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and add another little layer while it's still nice and wet. I'm just gonna pounce in a little bit more of the same color, just to saturate it a little bit more. I'm gonna dry it, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of turquoise to it, just to give it a little bit of a different color. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and dry that. Okay, so my polka dots are still a little damp in certain areas, but it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pick up my turquoise, and I'm gonna make a little wash of turquoise. Look how nice and dark that is. Bring in some water, because I wanna tone it down just a little bit. And then what I'm gonna do is more towards the edges, like how, you know how we did the edges of the cup a little bit darker? I'm gonna do that with my polka dots as well. So I'm just gonna make the polka dots on the sides of the cup a little bit darker. And then maybe even up here. Let that bleed out a little bit. There. And then if you want to give a little bit to these here too, you can. The ones that are like right in the middle of the cup. There. So it just darkens up everything a little bit. All right, now we're going to do our ground. This is where I'm going to pick up my bigger brush, my size 6. I'm going to take that wash of Payne's Gray that I already had. I'm going to tilt my painting sideways a little bit just so I get a good angle. And I'm just going to kind of make where my tabletop will be, kind of the horizon line. Now I don't have that much white space down here. If you have a lot more white space than I do, that's great. You can go ahead and play around with this a little bit more. I don't have that much space to work with here. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit of my Payne's Gray. I'm going to make a shadow under my cup. I'll pick up just a little bit of my blue, so it's got maybe like a little reflection on the table from the polka dots. And then if you want to pick up a little bit of that lavender too, maybe a little bit of a reflection of the lavender, you could do that as well. It's not going to be very noticeable, but just a little bit. All right, I'm going to go ahead and dry this, and then I'm going to give it another little layer. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I'm going to pick up my Payne's Gray. Oops, I made too much. I added another little bit here, and it's very dark. So I'm going to lighten that up with some water. I'm going to go over what I had just done under my cup a little bit darker. That's where the shadow is. Maybe around the cup. If you want to do a couple little lines here and there. There. And then if you feel like you need to add a little bit more of that blue, you can. I added maybe a little bit too much blue right here on this side, so I'm going to pick it up. There we go. You just want a little bit, not a lot. You don't want it competing with the cup. You just want it to look like maybe there's a little reflection. And then I'm going to take a little bit more of my Payne's Gray, darken this up a little bit more. All right. If you want to take your bigger brush and you just want to kind of feather it out, just get it damp a little bit and you can start feathering out some of that. And then just watch for the shape of your cup here. Make sure you didn't lose that little rim down on the bottom here. Good. That looks really, really cute. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and dry this, and I think I'm gonna add one more little layer of that Payne's Gray. This one I want to be a little bit darker. There. Now, if you feel that you need a little bit more Payne's Gray on the handle, which I think I do, just more towards the bottom here and the very top, I'm going to just blend that out with just water, just so there's a little bit of like a shadow there, just like that. If you feel that you need a little bit more on your sides, you can definitely do it. Just be careful of your blue. Blend it out a little bit, just in the white part. I'm just using water and I'm blending it out. There. Gives it a little bit more dimension on that side. And I think I'm going to do the same thing to these little areas here. This little area and this little area. And then with just some water, I'm going to blend it out. Just like that. Perfect. You can go ahead and add some more green if you want, or another layer of the purple, or darken up your table here, whatever you want. You could even go ahead and put in a little bit of a background. I think I'm going to leave mine just like that. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you liked it and learned a little something. And if you did like it, please give me a thumbs up, and you can make a comment in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more videos like this one. And you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Have a great day. Bye.